The Dominion's shadow. The Krev Dominion had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years, and they had never once asked for permission. Ambassador Lyra Castellan stood before the viewing port of the diplomatic station, watching the Krev warships drift past like predators circling prey. Each vessel was the size of a small moon, their hulls covered in the symbols of conquered worlds. 47 species. 47 civilizations that had been given the same choice Earth was about to receive. Submit or burn. "They're early," said Commander Jackson Pierce, checking his tactical display. His jaw was tight the way it always got before trouble started. "They want us nervous," Lyra replied, smoothing down her diplomatic uniform. "It's part of their process." The doors hissed open and the Krev delegation entered. Supreme Arbiter Vectharn led them, his 4 arms folded in what passed for Krev diplomacy. He was massive, nearly 8 feet tall, with obsidian skin that seemed to absorb light. Behind him came his enforcers, each one armed with weapons that had atomized entire cities. "Ambassador Castellan," Vectharn's voice rumbled through the translator. "Your species has been evaluated. The verdict is rendered." Lyra didn't bow. Didn't flinch. "We're listening. Earth will surrender all military assets within 30 cycles. Your governments will dissolve. Your people will be integrated into the labor castes appropriate to their genetic potential." He paused, mandibles clicking. "This is not negotiation. This is instruction. And if we refuse?" Vectharn's eyes glowed with something ancient and cruel. "Then we will demonstrate why 47 species chose survival over pride." The hologram he projected showed a planet burning. Cities turned to glass. Oceans boiling away. It was Thera Prime, the last world that had said no to the Dominion. Population, 12 billion. Current status, sterile rock. "You have violated every principle of the Galactic Convention," Lyra said quietly. "The rules of war, the laws of..." "Rules?" Vectharn laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "The strong make rules for the weak to follow. We are strong. You are weak. These are the only rules that matter." Jackson's hand moved toward his sidearm, but Lyra caught his eye. "Not yet. I need to consult with my government," she said. "You have 12 hours, Vectharn replied. "After that, we begin pacification operations. Starting with your lunar colonies. 20 million souls, I believe. They will serve as an adequate demonstration." The Krev delegation left, their footsteps echoing like a countdown. Jackson turned to Lyra. "We're not actually considering this?" "No," Lyra said, her voice hard as steel. "But we need them to think we are. Buy us time." "Time for what?" Lyra pulled up a classified file on her data pad. The header read, "Project Wildfire Eyes Only. Time to show them that humans have never been very good at following rules either." The hidden arsenal. Deep beneath the Sahara Desert, in a facility that didn't exist on any official record, General Marcus Thorne watched the countdown clock tick toward 0. "Status report," he barked. Dr. Yuki Nakamura looked up from her console, exhaustion carved into her features. She'd been awake for 48 hours straight. "The graviton warheads are ready. All 73 of them. The quantum disruptors? Deployed and armed. 16 stations across the solar system." Yuki hesitated. "General, if we use these weapons, we're crossing a line. The Galactic Convention banned graviton manipulation after the Xerxes collapse killed 6 billion. The Krev killed 12 billion on Thera Prime last year," Marcus cut her off. "They've violated every rule in the book. The convention is dead, Doctor. It died the moment the Dominion decided laws were for other people." Yuki nodded slowly. She knew he was right. The Galactic Convention had been humanity's Bible when they first made contact with alien life. Rules about warfare, about proportional response, about protecting civilian populations. Beautiful ideals that meant nothing when one side refused to honor them. The Krev had changed everything. They didn't conquer through diplomacy or fair combat. They appeared, they demanded, and if you resisted, they committed genocide. Clean, efficient, legal by their own system where might literally made right. "There's something else," Yuki said. "We've been analyzing their tactics from the 47 conquered worlds. They follow patterns. Strict protocols. They're so confident in their superiority that they've become predictable." "Show me." Yuki brought up a tactical display showing 3,000 years of Krev military operations. Every invasion followed the same blueprint. Overwhelming initial strike. Shock and awe. Target the capital, kill the leadership, break the spirit of resistance in the first 72 hours. "They've never fought an enemy that studied them," Marcus said, a predatory smile crossing his face. Never fought an enemy that was willing to fight dirty. His comlink chirped. It was Lyra. General, they've given us 12 hours. Then they start with the moon. 30 million people on Luna base, Marcus replied. Including my daughter. His voice didn't waver, but his hand tightened on the console. How much time do you need? 6 hours to evacuate the civilian sectors. Then we trigger the trap. You sure about this, Ambassador? Once we start, there's no going back. We become what we're fighting. Lyra's voice was cold and clear. The Krev became that a long time ago. We're just catching up. Marcus turned to his tactical team. Execute Operation Wildfire. Authorization code Omega-7 Delta. Across the solar system, hidden weapons came online. Satellites that looked like space debris activated combat protocols. Mining stations on asteroids revealed missile batteries. And on Earth, in 700 locations, teenagers who'd been playing video games looked up from their screens to find government agents at their doors. Because humanity had one advantage the Krev had never encountered. When the rules said children couldn't fight, humans had simply rewritten the definition of soldier. The trap springs. Vectharn stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Subjugator, watching Earth's moon grow larger in the viewport. Behind him, 300 warships hung in formation, enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. Status of human response? He demanded. They're evacuating their lunar base, reported Subcommander Raxkor. Civilian transports fleeing toward Earth. Predictable panic response. Vectharn felt satisfaction settle over him. This was how it always went. The primitives realized their situation was hopeless. They scrambled to save who they could. They broke. Destroy the transports once they're clear of the base, he ordered. Let them watch their hope die. Then they'll... The sensors screamed. Contact. Multiple contacts. Graviton signatures detected. The universe bent. That was the only way to describe it. Space itself folded inward around the Krev fleet like a closing fist. Graviton warheads, banned by every civilized species for 200 years, detonated in a precise pattern around the Dominion ships. Gravity didn't just increase. It became directional. Purposeful. Vectharn watched in horror as the warship to his left was pulled apart, its bow yanked toward its stern, metal screaming as the ship folded into itself like paper. Evasive maneuvers, he roared. But there was nowhere to run. The humans had done the calculations perfectly. Every ship in the fleet was caught in an overlapping gravitational trap. Hulls crumpled. Shields designed to stop energy weapons were useless against the fundamental forces of physics going mad. 30 ships died in the first 5 seconds. Return fire. Target Earth itself. The Eternal Subjugator's main cannon charged, gathering enough energy to boil an ocean. But before it could fire, something struck the ship's engineering section. Not a missile. Not a beam. A virus. Every Krev ship operated on the same quantum network, an advantage that let them coordinate perfectly. Except humanity's cyber warfare division, led by a 19-year-old genius named Kira Okoye, had been studying that network for 6 months. She'd found the backdoor. Every backdoor. Across the fleet, weapon systems shut down. Life support began cycling randomly. And in a stroke of particular cruelty, the translator system started feeding random commands to the crew. Chaos bloomed through the armada. How? Vectharn stared at his failing displays. They're primitives. They'd been spacefaring for barely 2 centuries. Down on Earth, in a bunker in Geneva, Lyra Castellan watched the battle through satellite feeds. Beside her, Jackson Pierce monitored the tactical situation. Phase 1 complete, Jackson reported. 60% of their fleet disabled or destroyed. Phase 2, Lyra commanded. The civilian transports that had been fleeing Luna suddenly changed course. Their cargo bays opened, but instead of refugees they released drone swarms. Thousands of them. Small, cheap, expendable. Each one carried a single quantum disruptor charge. The Krev Point defense systems tried to respond, but they were designed to stop capital ships and missiles. Not clouds of tiny targets moving in unpredictable patterns, controlled by gaming champions who'd been recruited specifically for their reaction times. The drones struck like piranhas. Vectharn felt his flagship shudder as explosion after explosion rippled across the hull. Activate emergency FTL. Retreat. But Yuki Nakamura had thought of that too. The quantum disruptors weren't just weapons. They were FTL inhibitors. The space around Earth had become a cage. We're trapped, Raxkor whispered. For the first time in 3,000 years, a Krev fleet faced a simple, terrible truth. They were going to lose. Humanity's choice. The Battle of Luna lasted 11 hours. When it ended, 270 Krev warships had been reduced to debris. 30 escaped, their FTL drives finally breaking free of the quantum cage once Earth's inhibitors powered down. They ran. The mighty Dominion ran. In the aftermath, Lyra stood in the Situation Room surrounded by world leaders. The mood should have been celebratory. They'd won an impossible victory. They'd done to the Krev what no species had managed in 3 millennia. But the holographic display showed the cost. 800,000 casualties, reported Secretary General Amara Okonkwo. Mostly military, but the fighting around Luna Station caught some civilian ships. And we used weapons that were banned for good reasons. Prime Minister Chen Weilin spoke up, his voice heavy. The quantum disruptions have caused gravitational anomalies around Earth's orbit. Our scientists estimate it will take 50 years to stabilize. President Oluwale of the Pan-African Union looked at Lyra. The galaxy saw everything. Every weapon we used. Every rule we broke. The Galactic Council is convening an emergency session to discuss humanity's methods. Let them discuss, said General Marcus Thorne entering the room. His uniform was scorched from personally leading a boarding action on a disabled Krev cruiser. We did what we had to do. Did we? Asked Chancellor Volkov from the Russian Federation. We used child soldiers. Teenagers operating drone swarms. We used banned weapons of mass destruction. We became survivors, Lyra interrupted. The Krev didn't give us the luxury of fighting clean. They were going to kill 30 million people on the moon as a demonstration. They burned Thera Prime to bedrock. They've enslaved 47 species. And now the Council fears we'll become the next Dominion, Amara said quietly. Species who'll do anything to win. Who ignore the rules when convenient. The room fell silent. Jackson spoke up from his position by the tactical display. There's another problem. Those 30 ships that escaped? They're heading back to Krev space. The Dominion has thousands more warships. This was just one fleet. One. How long before they return? Asked President Oluwale. Unknown. Could be months. Could be years. But they'll come. And next time they'll be ready for our tactics. Lyra walked to the viewing screen showing Earth below, beautiful and blue and fragile. Then we have a choice to make. We can be the species that won one battle but loses the war. That follows the rules while our enemies break them and dies with our principles intact. Or, prompted Amara. Or we do what humans have always done. We adapt. We evolve. We become whatever we need to be to survive. Lyra turned to face the assembly. But we do it consciously. We don't become the Krev. We keep our humanity even as we learn to fight like them. Dr. Yuki Nakamura appeared on one of the screens, her face streaked with sweat and grease from the weapon labs. We've captured 5 Krev ships mostly intact. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours in some areas. If we can reverse engineer it, combine it with our own innovations. We become a threat, Marcus finished. Not just to the Dominion. To everyone. The galaxy will have to take us seriously. Or unite against us, Chen Weilin countered. Lyra nodded slowly. That's the risk. We saved Earth today by becoming something the galaxy fears. By proving we're willing to break any rule, use any weapon, do anything necessary to survive. Some species will respect that. Others will see us as the next Dominion. So what do we do? Amara asked. Lyra looked at each leader in turn. We prove them wrong. We use these weapons and tactics not for conquest but for defense. Not to enslave but to liberate. Starting with the 47 species the Krev have already conquered. The room erupted in arguments. Half the leaders thought she was insane. The other half were calculating the logistics. But in the corner, General Marcus Thorne smiled. Because he'd seen that look in Lyra's eyes before. It was the look of someone who'd just declared war on the galaxy's greatest empire. And meant to win. The Liberation Fleet. 6 months after the Battle of Luna, the first human Liberation Fleet assembled at the edge of the solar system. It wasn't much by galactic standards. 43 ships, most of them retrofitted with captured Krev technology. But what they lacked in numbers they made up for in pure human audacity. Captain Devon Reeves stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, humanity's first true warship built from scratch with hybrid technology. Beside him, Kira Okoye worked the cyber warfare station, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces as she monitored Krev communications across 3 sectors. Target confirmed, Kira announced. Vault Prime. Population, 300 million. Species, Theraxian. Krev occupation force, 12,000 troops, 4 garrison ships. Devon studied the tactical display. Vault Prime was a fortress world, where the Krev processed raw materials extracted from 6 nearby systems. 300 million slaves working until they dropped, then being replaced by the next generation. Dr. Nakamura, status on the liberation package? Yuki's voice came through the comm, ready for deployment. But Captain, I'm going to say this one more time, what we're about to do is going to make every species in the galaxy nervous. Because we're freeing slaves? Because we're proving humans can do precision warfare better than species who've been fighting for millennia. We're not just breaking the Krev rules. We're rewriting the whole playbook. Devon smiled grimly. Good. Let's make them nervous. The fleet jumped to FTL. They emerged in Vault Prime's orbit 6 hours later, and for exactly 90 seconds nothing happened. The Krev garrison detected them, started scrambling to battle stations, began charging weapons. Then Kira unleashed hell. The virus she deployed wasn't like anything the Krev had encountered. It didn't just shut down systems, it rewrote them. Suddenly, the garrison ship's sensors showed them attacking each other. Their weapons targeting computers went haywire. Their communications filled with ghost signals. Drop teams, you're clear, Devon ordered. 23 ships broke formation, dropping toward the planet's surface. Not to bomb. Not to destroy. But to deploy the most dangerous weapon humanity had created. Hope. On the surface, in Labor Camp 7, a Thraxian named Kelix was hauling refined ore when the sky split open. Human soldiers rappelled down on gravity harnesses, moving with a speed and precision that seemed impossible. The Krev guards opened fire. The humans scattered like water, taking cover, returning fire with weapons that seemed to bend bullets around corners. Not energy weapons. Not plasma. Old-fashioned kinetic rounds enhanced with AI targeting that made every shot count. A young soldier, couldn't have been more than 20, slid to a stop beside Kelix. You speak standard? Kelix nodded, too shocked to respond properly. Good. Tell your people, we're getting you out. All of you. But we need 3 days. Can you hold? Hold? Against the Krev? Kelix's voice cracked. They'll kill us all. The soldier grinned. They'll try. But here's what they don't know, we didn't come alone. Above the planet, the 4 Krev garrison ships finally broke through Kira's cyber attack. They reoriented toward the Indomitable, weapons charging. Here they come, reported the tactical officer. Launch the surprise, Devon ordered calmly. From the Indomitable's cargo bay, a single pod launched. It looked like nothing, a simple container barely 10 meters long. The Krev ignored it, focusing on the larger threat. The pod opened. What emerged wasn't a weapon in the traditional sense. It was a swarm of self-replicating construction drones, each one carrying a quantum computer and a simple instruction: protect the humans and their allies. The drones multiplied. Thousands became millions. They formed a living shield between the Krev ships and the human fleet. When the Krev fired, the drones absorbed the shots, died by thousands, and were instantly replaced by new drones built from the debris. That's... The tactical officer breathed. That's Grey Goo technology. That's been banned since the Dominion decided rules didn't apply to them, Devon finished. We're not using it to destroy. We're using it to save lives. There's a difference. On the planet below, the human soldiers weren't just fighting. They were teaching. Showing the Thraxian slaves how to improvise weapons from mining equipment. How to coordinate using simple hand signals. How to turn their prison into a fortress. When the Krev reinforcements arrived 3 days later, they found something they'd never encountered: an organized resistance. 300 million slaves who'd remembered how to fight. Led by 1,000 humans who fought like demons and thought like tacticians. The battle for Vault Prime lasted a week. When it ended, the Krev occupation force was destroyed, the Thraxian people were free, and humanity had proven something terrifying. They weren't just good at breaking rules. They were good at winning. The price of victory. The liberation of Vault Prime sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Within a month, 17 more species reached out to humanity, begging for help against their Krev oppressors. The Galactic Council called emergency sessions. Ambassadors shouted about human violations of intergalactic law. And the Krev Dominion, for the first time in its history, began to fear. Lyra stood before the Galactic Council, surrounded by delegates from 200 species. Some looked at her with hope. Others with disgust. Most with fear. You've violated 43 separate conventions, declared Councillor Vextar of the Ornithid Collective. His avian features were ruffled with agitation. Banned weapons. Grey Goo technology. Cyber warfare that threatens all network species. You're becoming what you fight. We're fighting to survive, Lyra replied evenly. The Krev killed 12 billion on Thera Prime. They've enslaved 47 species. Where was the council then? We issued sanctions. Sanctions. Lyra's voice cut through the chamber. You issued sanctions while species died. You wrote strongly worded letters while civilizations burned. You hid behind your rules and your conventions while the Dominion ignored every single one. So you believe the solution is to have no rules at all? Vextar demanded. No. I believe the solution is to have rules that actually protect people. Not rules that protect the strong while they prey on the weak. Ambassador Tkesh of the Harmonious Concordat rose, his crystalline form refracting light in the chamber. The human speaks truth we do not wish to hear. For 3,000 years we've watched the Krev expand. We passed laws against their methods. They ignored them. We protested their atrocities. They laughed. We sanctioned their trade. They conquered our trading partners. Because we never had the courage to do what the humans did, added Representative Mix of the Aquarian Spheres. Break the cycle. Fight fire with fire. And now? Vextar's voice was bitter. Now we have two species willing to use any weapon, commit any atrocity for victory. How is that better? Lyra pulled up a holographic display. This is Vault Prime before we arrived. 300 million slaves. Average life expectancy, 37 years. This is Vault Prime now. The image shifted. Theraxian people rebuilding their cities. Children playing. Freedom. We didn't conquer them. We freed them. We're not expanding territory. We're liberating people. That's the difference between us and the Krev. For now, Vextar said quietly. But power corrupts. You've proven you're willing to use banned weapons, child soldiers, grey goo technology. What happens when you decide the council is in your way? When we become the next obstacle to overcome? The question hung in the air. Before Lyra could answer, the chamber's emergency alarms blared. A hologram appeared showing a planet, Cornelia 4, home to 9 billion beings, with 40 Krev warships in orbit. This is Supreme Arbiter Vectharn, the Krev leader's voice boomed through the chamber. The Dominion has grown weary of human interference. The Council is given a choice: surrender the humans for trial and execution, or watch Cornelia 4 burn. You have 12 hours. The transmission cut out. The chamber exploded into chaos. Delegates shouting. Species demanding Earth's surrender. Others calling for military action. The carefully balanced politics of the galaxy tearing apart. Lyra looked at the image of Cornelia 4. 9 billion innocent lives held hostage. Her comlink chirped. It was General Marcus Thorne. We have a strike package ready, he said without preamble. Can hit the Krev fleet in 6 hours. But we'll need to use the planet killer missiles we've been developing. Reverse engineered from Krev technology. More powerful than what they used on Thera Prime. Casualties. If we're lucky, just the Krev fleet. If we're not lucky, we crack Cornelia IV's tectonic plates. Kill everyone we're trying to save. Lyra closed her eyes. This was the moment. The choice that would define what humanity became. There's another option, came Yuki's voice on the channel. But you're really not going to like it. The new rules. Vectharn stood on the bridge of his flagship, orbiting Cornelia 4 with smug satisfaction. The humans had proven resourceful, but ultimately they were still bound by their sentimentality. They wouldn't sacrifice 9 billion innocent lives. They would surrender Lyra Castellan and their military leaders. The Dominion would execute them publicly, and the human rebellion would collapse. It was the pattern that had worked for 3,000 years. Supreme Arbiter, his sensor operator called out. Human ships emerging from FTL. How many? 1. Vectharn blinked. 1 ship. On his view screen appeared the indomitable Humanity's flagship, alone against 40 Krev warships. On its hull, someone had painted a message in several languages. Here for a conversation. Are they insane? Raxcor muttered. Hail them, Vectharn ordered. Lyra Castellan's face appeared on the screen. She looked calm. Too calm. That made Vectharn nervous. Ambassador. Have you come to surrender? No, Lyra replied. I've come to teach you about the rules. Vectharn laughed. The strong make the rules. We've demonstrated this for 3,000 years. Yes, I know. But here's the thing about rules, Vectharn. They're only useful if everyone agrees to follow them. When you broke the Galactic Convention, you didn't just free yourself from the rules. You freed everyone. Meaning? Meaning we've spent 6 months analyzing every world you've conquered. Every supply line you operate. Every strategic position you hold. And we've realized something interesting. Lyra pulled up a hologram showing the Dominion's territory. Hundreds of systems. Thousands of worlds. An empire that stretched across 3 sectors. Your empire is built on fear. On the assumption that species will surrender rather than face annihilation. But what happens when someone calls your bluff? This is not a bluff, Vectharn snarled. I will burn Cornelia 4 if... Then burn it. The words fell like stones into silence. What? Vectharn's voice was uncertain for the first time. I said burn it. You want to demonstrate Krev power? Go ahead. Kill 9 billion beings. Prove to the galaxy that you're exactly what everyone knows you are. Monsters with big weapons and no honor. You're bluffing. Humans don't sacrifice. We don't want to. But here's what you don't understand, Vectharn. You taught us that rules mean nothing. That honor means nothing. That the only thing that matters is victory. Lyra's eyes were hard as diamonds. So we learned. And now we're going to teach you the new rules. What new rules? Across the galaxy, on 47 conquered worlds, something happened simultaneously. The oppressed species who'd been watching humanity's rebellion suddenly rose up. Not in scattered resistance. Not in disorganized riots. But in coordinated revolutions. Because for 6 months, human operatives had been secretly spreading across Krev territory. Not soldiers. Teachers. Showing slaves how to hack their oppressors' technology. How to build weapons from mining equipment. How to coordinate without communications networks. How to fight the way humans fought. The new rules are simple, Lyra continued. Every time you threaten innocent lives, we free another one of your slave worlds. Every time you deploy your fleet, we hit your supply lines. Every time you try to make an example of someone, we make an example of your weakness. We have thousands of ships. And we've analyzed them all. Your vessels use 37 critical components that are only manufactured on 3 planets. Want to guess where our strike teams are right now? Vectharn's tactical display lit up with alerts. Factories on the Dominion's core worlds were exploding. Not from external attacks. From internal sabotage. Krev workers, the lowest caste of the Dominion, had been turned. Impossible. Our own people would never. Your own people have been slaves for 3,000 years, Lyra said coldly. They were just waiting for someone to show them it was possible to fight back. We showed them. Down on Cornelia 4, the people watched the Krev fleet with terror. But then something else appeared in their skies. Not ships. Broadcasts. Messages from freed worlds. From Vault Prime. From Thera Prime, where impossibly, survivors had emerged from hidden bunkers ready to rebuild. Hope spread like fire. Vectharn realized with dawning horror that his hostage was becoming worthless. If he destroyed Cornelia 4 now, he wouldn't be demonstrating power. He'd be proving that the Dominion was scared. That humanity had cracked their invincibility. This is madness, he whispered. No, Lyra corrected. This is adaptation. You spent 3,000 years teaching the galaxy that might makes right. That rules exist to be broken. That anything is justified in service of victory. Congratulations, Vectharn. We learned your lessons. And we learned them better than you ever did. What do you want? Withdrawal. Complete and total. From every occupied world. Every slave set free. Every conquered species given back their autonomy. And if we refuse? Then we do what you taught us. We show no mercy. We use every weapon we have. We break every rule. We become the monsters you created. Lyra leaned forward. But unlike you, we'll do it to free people. Not to enslave them. And that's going to make all the difference. For the first time in recorded history, the Krev Dominion blinked first. Vectharn's fleet withdrew from Cornelia 4. Within a month, the Dominion began abandoning outer territories. Within a year, their empire had collapsed inward, retreating to their core worlds. The galaxy watched in awe and terror as humanity proved something that would reshape intergalactic politics forever. The biggest guns mattered less than the will to use them. The strongest ships mattered less than the clever tactics that bypassed them. And the oldest rules mattered less than the courage to write new ones. In the aftermath, Lyra stood once more before the Galactic Council. The delegates were different now. Representatives from freed worlds, from liberated species, from civilizations that had been given a second chance. You broke every rule to save us, Takesh said quietly. You became what you fought. No, Lyra replied. We became what we needed to be. There's a difference. We used terrible weapons and brutal tactics. But we used them to liberate, not conquer. To free, not enslave. That matters. Does it? Asked a new voice. Ambassador Kelix of the Thraxian people stepped forward, scales gleaming. You showed us that rules only work when everyone follows them. That honor is meaningless against an enemy who has none. That sometimes survival requires becoming something you fear. And? Lyra prompted. And you also showed us that even when you break the rules, even when you fight dirty, even when you become the monsters in the dark, you can still choose what you fight for. The Krev fought for domination. You fought for freedom. That's the new rule. The council chamber was silent for a long moment. Then one by one delegates began to stand. Not in condemnation. In recognition. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson. The Dominion had spent 3,000 years teaching everyone that rules were for the weak. Humanity had spent 1 year proving that the strong didn't need rules, they needed purpose. As Lyra left the council chambers, Jackson fell into step beside her. Think it'll stick? He asked. The peace. For a while, Lyra replied. Until someone else decides rules don't apply to them. Then we'll have to remind them again. Remind them how? Lyra smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. However we need to. That's the curse of breaking the rules to save lives. You prove it can be done. And once you've crossed that line you can never really go back. She looked up at Earth, hanging beautiful and blue in the sky above the orbital station. Humanity had won. They'd saved themselves and 47 other species. They'd toppled an empire that had endured for 3 millennia. But in doing so they'd become something new. Not conquerors. Not peacekeepers. Something in between. A species that would follow the rules when they worked and break them when they didn't. That would fight with honor when possible and without mercy when necessary. The galaxy would never quite trust humans again. But they would never quite dare to threaten them either. And sometimes, Lyra reflected, that was the best you could hope for. Not to be loved. Just to be free. Behind her, Earth spun on. Full of people who'd learned the hardest lesson in the universe. That sometimes the price of survival was becoming something you never thought you'd be. And paying it anyway.